the heart of this nation, under skies so blue,
there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true.
from the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're diving deep into the heart of what we believe.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're jumping into a topic that's always buzzing, AI and jobs.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But today, we're looking at it through a very specific lens. We've got an article here that, well, it pushes back a bit on the usual story. The source we're digging into is an article from WorldNet Daily. It's by Amanda Bartolotta, published June 7th, 2025.
Right.
And the title is pretty direct. AI means actually India. How Salesforce's AI smokescreen masks a mass labor shift out of America. So our mission here is really to unpack what this specific article is claiming. It gives a, let's say, challenging view on the whole AI job displacement narrative, using Salesforce as its main example.
That's right. I mean, the standard tech narrative is often, AI boosts efficiency, automation happens, and that means fewer human jobs needed.
Right, the classic automation story.
Exactly. This article doesn't really deny AI's impact, but it suggests that, for some companies at least, the public talk about AI driving job cuts might be covering up a different kind of strategy, more traditional, really.
Okay, so let's get right into that central argument. The article claims that for a company like Salesforce, saying job cuts are because of AI efficiency the author calls it a smokescreen.
Yes, exactly. The article's angle is that if you look at the numbers it presents, the main driver isn't really automation making jobs obsolete.
Okay.
It's more about shifting labor geographically, specifically, offshoring jobs out of the U.S.
And the article provides some specific figures for Salesforce, covering what, 2020 to 2024?
Yeah, it points to thousands fewer employees in the U.S. workforce during that time.
Okay.
But contrasts that sharply with the employee base in India, which it says grew by over 420%.
Wow, 420%.
It also mentions U.S. office closures, San Francisco, Portland, other places, while highlighting growth in cities like Hyderabad and Mumbai in India.
So it's painting a picture of a direct shift.
The article definitely frames it that way, yes. Not just a one-off thing for Salesforce, but maybe part of a wider pattern it sees.
It mentions other examples.
It does. It brings up things presented as high-tech innovations, like Amazon's Just Walk Out tech or Microsoft's Natasha chatbot.
Right, I've heard of those.
But the article claims that behind the scenes, these were heavily reliant on, large teams of offshore workers doing manual review or providing support.
So the argument here is that this isn't just happening by accident because of new tech. It's a conscious business choice.
That's what the author argues, yeah. Describing it as a deliberate strategy. The term used is global labor arbitrage.
Global labor arbitrage sounds like a fancy way of saying moving jobs to cheaper places.
Essentially, yes. And the article claims they're using the language of AI innovation and productivity gains to justify cutting costs by shifting work away from, say, American workers.
Okay, let's trace the timeline the article lays out for Salesforce. It suggests this really picked up around 2022.
Yes, when it became visible, according to the article. It says cuts started hitting U.S. recruitment and operations roles then. But interestingly, at the same time, the article says Salesforce was announcing plans for 2,500 new roles in India, which was, a 33% increase for them there?
Then January 2023, the article flags that as a really big moment.
Yeah, the most significant cut it details about 7,000 employees, which was roughly 10% of their global staff back then.
And the reason given at the time?
The article notes CEO Mark Benioff initially pointed to sort of pandemic-era overhiring, growing too fast for demand.
Okay, the post-pandemic correction reason we heard from a few places.
Right, but the article contrasts that public statement with what it says was in Salesforce's own 10K filing for 2024.
The annual SEC report.
Exactly. A detailed look at the business. The article quotes that filing, talking about a restructuring plan.
And it what?
Reducing operating costs, improving margins, specifically mentioning workforce reductions and getting rid of real estate, with a target of saving $3 to $5 billion globally.
So the filing frames it as cost reduction, and the article connects us back to India.
Yes. It argues that even while making these global cuts for cost reasons, Salesforce was, and I quote the article, accelerating its investments in India. It even cites another report saying Salesforce was beefing up its India presence while slashing jobs elsewhere.
Does the article have quotes from Salesforce execs about India?
It does. It quotes Arun Bhattacharya, who's the chairperson and CEO of Salesforce India.
Okay.
She's quoted saying their workforce there jumped from 2,500 in 2020 to over 13,000. And she apparently said this showed the company's increasing reliance on India for leadership and talent.
13,000. That's a huge increase.
It is. And the article also points to Mark Benioff himself at Dreamforce 2024, saying they'd invested aggressively in India.
Then there's this move in September 2023. The article really zooms in on something about an agreement with an Indian Education Council.
Yeah, a memorandum of understanding, an MOU with India's AICTE. That's the All India Council for Technical Education.
And what did that involve?
Embedding Salesforce's training platform, Trailhead, into over 2,500 Indian engineering colleges.
Wow. Okay.
The stated goals were huge. Train 1 million students, create 500,000 direct job placements.
So 500,000 placements.
The article interprets this as Salesforce sort of institutionalizing the offshoring, building a direct pipeline from Indian tech education straight into potential Salesforce jobs.
Right. Creating the infrastructure for that shift.
That seems to be the article's interpretation. Then it moves to February 2025. Another round of layoffs.
How many this time?
Over 1,000 employees, plus about 500 reassignments. But this time, according to the article,
Yes.
Salesforce specifically blamed productivity gains from artificial intelligence, saying AI tools made certain roles obsolete.
So now AI is the explicit reason given.
That's what the article states. And they projected $50 million in savings from just that round of cuts.
And the article links this to executive comments.
It points to the Chief Financial and Operations Officer, Robin Washington. She reportedly mentioned reduced hiring needs and credited AI tool adoption.
Especially in which areas?
Particularly engineering and customer service roles. So the public message, as the article portrays it, was very clear. AI makes us more productive. We don't need as many people in these roles. Hiring slows down.
Okay, clear message. But then the article introduces a contrast.
A major one, yes.
Okay.
It says, while that was the story in the U.S. AI, reducing hiring needs, causing layoffs,
Right.
A presentation cited by the article, titled The Salesforce Economy, India Powered by AI Cloud Solutions, was apparently shown to stakeholders in India.
And that presentation told a different story.
A very different story. According to the article summary, it says Salesforce projected its AI-powered cloud solutions would create 2.72 million jobs in India by 2028.
Create 2.72 million. Including direct jobs?
Including 1.17 million direct jobs. So that's a huge projected increase, like 185% from 2023, the article notes.
Okay, hold on. So the article is highlighting this massive difference.
Exactly. It draws this really stark contrast. In the U.S., the public message is AI means fewer jobs, slower hiring, especially for engineers, customer service. But in India, presentations apparently frame the same AI tech as this incredible engine for job creation in similar fields.
So the article's conclusion from this is
that the real transformation was geographic, not technological. That's a direct quote.
Meaning the savings weren't just from robots doing the work?
It argues that the $50 million in AI-driven savings from those February 2025 cuts didn't really come from pure automation.
But from
cutting U.S. jobs and effectively shifting that work or the need for those roles overseas where labor costs are lower. The author calls it labor arbitrage dressed up in buzzwords.
Labor arbitrage in AI clothing, basically.
That's the gist of the argument.
Yeah.
And the article points to Salesforce's marketing for its Agentforce AI platform as kind of reinforcing this.
How so?
Well, that platform talks about automating tasks, cutting operational costs, saying the tools free up human agents.
Which sounds like AI replacing jobs.
Right. The article contends that marketing message fits the public narrative perfectly, while the actions it describes, the massive hiring and investment focus shifting to India point to jobs being moved, not just eliminated.
And this is where it brings back those other examples, like Amazon and Microsoft.
Exactly. It loops back to Amazon's just walkout, needing reportedly over 1,000 workers in India for review, and Microsoft's chatbot needing hundreds of Indian staff.
To suggest this isn't just Salesforce, but maybe a wider playbook.
That seems to be the implication the article is drawing, yes. That this could be a broader strategy disguised by tech talk.
The article also touches on potential legal or disclosure issues.
It raises a point, yeah. It suggests that telling the U.S. public and shareholders one thing about AI causing layoffs and slower hiring.
While telling a foreign government the opposite.
That the same tech will create millions of jobs there, yeah.
Yeah.
It questions whether that could potentially mislead shareholders about the company's actual labor strategy under SEC disclosure rules. It doesn't make a legal claim, but it raises the question of transparency.
So it leaves the reader asking some tough questions based on its analysis.
Definitely. Like, are jobs disappearing because automation makes them unnecessary? Or is it just that AI implemented with cheaper labor in India allows for cost savings presented as automation?
Or maybe those massive job creation numbers for India are inflated.
That's another possibility the article floats. Are those millions of jobs genuinely needed, or are the pledges just optimistic, let's say?
But the article seems pretty firm on one takeaway.
In its view, yes. It states that when Americans invest in Salesforce, they're investing in a company that, and again, this is the article's claim, itself no longer invests in the country that built it.
Despite the U.S. still being its biggest market.
Despite the U.S. driving over 67% of Salesforce's revenue, according to the article.
And the final verdict from the article is pretty blunt.
Very. It calls the strategy extraction, not innovation, and argues it should be disclosed clearly. And that memorable closing line.
AI stands for actually India.
That's the punchline the article delivers.
Okay, so we've done a deep dive into the perspective laid out in this particular article. It really does challenge that standard narrative about AI automatically leading to job losses.
Yeah, it argues strongly, using Salesforce data points, that what's presented as AI-driven change might actually be a strategic offshoring move wrapped in tech buzzwords.
We've walked through the timeline it presents, the specific workforce numbers for the U.S. versus India, and that really striking contrast it highlights between the messaging in the two countries about AI's impact on jobs.
And we touched on the broader examples it uses and the questions it raises about transparency and what's really driving these massive workforce shifts we're seeing.
It's certainly a pointed viewpoint on a really complex issue affecting pretty much everyone, workers and companies globally. It bases its conclusions on the specific details it chose to highlight.
And digging into this article's claims really brings up an interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. When companies talk about workforce changes, especially involving new tech like AI, how do you evaluate the reasons they give? What do you look for?
Definitely something to consider. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
In the heart of this nation, under skies so blue, there's a spirit that's stirring, values strong and true. From the mountains to the prairies, from the cities to the sea, we stand for liberty, for faith and family. We're dying